I will start with the mental part of it, the part where you struggle and the part where you prepare mentally for the examination. First of all, I would like to start with the fact that nobody might mention that it might take you 2 or 3 years. So it's very important to know why you are here and why you want to write this examination. So once you're very clear and definite on why you are here, I think it gives you the strength to go forward even when you fail. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the ability to be able to be self-motivated, because most of the times I've heard people asking for motivation. My belief is that you cannot have it from outside. You can have only internal motivation, and also push through having the consistency to do 4 or 5 hours of studies a day, and having a keen awareness of the issues that are happening around you also genuinely helps. Having said that, the most cumbersome or the tedious process that they call, the prelims and mains and interview itself, I would like to break it down into parts and deal with it one by one. So my journey through prelims has been very lengthy, to say the least, because I have gone through 2 prelims and I have failed twice. And I gave my 3rd prelims and cleared through probably for 1 mark or 2 marks, I don't know, it's not out yet. But what I would like to say is that prelims is something that tests your knowledge and also your ability to take tests in a very smart way. So some people acquire that skill in a very short span of time, some people acquire it in a longer time. What really helps is, if I break it down into 3 parts, there is a set of static portions that everybody is doing for the examination. So for this part of it, most of the people refer to the same sources. So it's very important to list your sources and be very sure of what exactly are you going to study for this part. For example, if you choose modern history and if you have listed 2 sources, it's important to not change it over time because you have been failing, and to stick through the same sources and revise it multiple number of times so that you're very sure about the fundamentals. That's part 1, and I'm sure that most of you will have the book list because there are a lot of online resources for the same thing. The second part is the current affairs. Now, since I was working and preparing for especially the prelims, I depended on the newspaper for most of the time. I had spent around 40 to 45 minutes a day on the Hindu. I used to do it during my lunch break. And I just skim through it and see what's important in that particular day. And in the month end, I would wait for monthly modules of different coaching centers to release and go through that and revise my understanding of what I had from the newspaper. Now, if you don't look at the newspaper, what happens is you're completely out of touch with what happens around, and this monthly PDF of 100 pages becomes a little too much. So if you're supplementing the newspapers with the monthly magazine, I think it's a good way to revise current affairs as well. The third part and the most important part, and also the reason why I failed in my first 2 attempts, is the way you do test papers for prelims. So the difference that made, I think, my 3rd attempt and my 2nd attempt is probably the fact that I've done around 50 test papers from different places, including IAS, Baba, so many other places. So I've done around 50-60 test papers, had the patience to sit and solve each of the question, note down in a separate diary what I didn't know. And for example, if I didn't know a particular section in modern history, for example, Renaissance movements, I would go and read that particular chapter and make sure that I'm very sure about the topics in that particular chapter. So whatever gaps that you might have from the static preparation and the current affairs gets filled up once you start looking at where you were failing in your prelims test papers. So once you're done with around 50 test papers, one thing that happens is your knowledge is increased. Your knowledge becomes very solid. Second thing that happens is that you become smarter at taking tests. You start looking at why did I make this particular question wrong. So once this introspection is done, you can see that your scores over time, over a few months, will also shoot up. Now, another thing I would like to add regarding prelims is the fact that many people wait for the entire syllabus to be done before you do test papers. But the truth is that since it's UPSC and the syllabus is very lengthy, there is never a point when you're completely done with the syllabus. So it's important to do test papers as and when you have, say, done 50% or 60% of the static syllabus. So then it also becomes helpful to guide you through telling what is relevant to the syllabus and what is not, because otherwise you spend a lot of time reading what you should not be reading. So these are the mistakes that I learned from my first 2 failures in preliminary examination. I would like to tell you a story of how I went about with my mains. Since I was working the entire time, and sometimes mains requires a little more time than that, I requested for some time off during work and also took work from home and balanced between work and preparation sometime. And I traveled to a place called Trivandrum where I happened to find 2 mentors. Now I can tell you how finding the right mentors can help you. If I would not have found the right mentors, probably it might have taken me more attempts or more number of years to crack the same examination. One part is where the mentor has a very good understanding of the examination itself. The second part is your humility to accept and look at the criticism that you receive from your mentors and the willingness to work on it. So provided you have these factors in favor of you, mains examination is just about how well you do your answer writing. Because most people who clear prelims, after a particular point, everybody has the same knowledge and everybody is knowledgeable. And with the knowledge that you have, it is very, very possible to write an exceptional answer in that 4 month span of time, provided you spend a few hours writing answers every day, at least after prelims. So one part is the GS preparation and the other part is the optional. I will look into the GS one first. So what I did after my prelims is to continue reading the newspaper and to fill in those parts of the syllabus which are not part in the prelims. For example, world history is not part of it. And another thing that I did is while I read the newspaper, I also looked at this particular article is related to which particular line of the syllabus in the mains. So I was also very clear regarding what is included in the syllabus in mains and what is not. So that helped me cut down the portion in the newspaper itself. So once I was done with that, my younger sister used to help me cut out these articles. So whichever article is relevant to GS1, I had it as a pile, GS2 as a pile, GS3 as a pile. So similarly, I had a pile of newspapers from which I would add content and graphs and diagrams into my mains answers. So my rock solid foundation was this set of newspaper articles. Another thing that I did was to write one single answer every single day perfectly. By this, what I mean is not writing multiple answers and decreasing the time in the beginning, but to make sure that the way you think about certain answers is the right way. So first, if you take an answer, there is a particular structure that it's really up to you. It's a very personal structure. And what I followed was start with a very brief introduction, content and summary, or introduction, content and conclusion. So once I had achieved a reasonable perfection with the 3 parts, I would go ahead and split the content into multiple parts, into say global, regional, or examples from different places, or split it according to political, economical, sociological, geographical, so all these factors. Some answers might require you reading the question multiple times and looking at the question itself to figure out how can you split this particular answer. So what I believe is that as you add more and more visibility to the way you write your answers, the better your score would be, because the more attention the examiner will give to your particular answer. Moreover, even if you don't have some content in a particular aspect of the answer, you can give all the other dimensions in a very detailed way, add it with diagrams, maps if it's possible, and make it look like a very authentic answer that a civil servant would write. Towards the end, what I did for my answers was to look back into the current affairs articles, look for examples and codes and numbers and statistics that I could supplement with my mains answer. Another thing that I did was to make sure that I had a way forward or a future or a suggestion towards the future that I added for every mains answer. So this kind of comprised of my GS 1, 2, 3 preparation. Now to speak on behalf of the essay and ethics, what I did was meticulously writing the answers and giving it to my mentors whom I found in Trivandrum, who gave me exceptional feedback. So the first time when we write an essay, what we usually think, at least for me, I was a person who thought I would write well, which turned out to be false, because creative writing is very, very, very different from what is expected of a mains answer writing. So that way, the essay that I wrote was something very incomprehensive and something very, very random compared to what you should write for a mains examination. So this way my mentor told me exactly what is expected of a mains essay, which is having a very direct introduction towards the topic, then go on to discuss multiple aspects of the same topic, bring in contrasts, and have a very logical and rational flow of debate regarding the two sides of a particular topic in an essay. So as different people have different ways of writing it. Some people write the structure before, some people have a spontaneous flow of writing. So I had tried both, and I found that for me the spontaneous flow does work better, and I went with that. And but in the end, I also on retrospect looked at which all dimensions have I already covered. Now there are different ways to brainstorm in an essay. So once you have selected a topic which is most comfortable for you, you can think of all the subtitles that are present in the GS main syllabus. So that way you get multiple dimensions. Another way to think would be, what did you recently read in the newspaper that can be related to that particular essay. Another way to brainstorm could be global examples, national examples, government schemes. So all these things pertaining whatever you have read in the GS will definitely help supplement what you are writing for the essay. So once you are done with it and you have a mental argument from the both sides of the essay, you might have one side that you have taken or chosen, or you might also have a balanced opinion on things. So depending on what you genuinely believe for that particular topic, after a well thought discourse, once you have a rational flow of information in your essay, I think it makes a good essay. Sometimes for some essays I have used images, or for example maps. An example would be, I wrote this essay on how classrooms are the cradle for India's future or something like that, and I used this graph where India's demographic dividend is peaking by 2050 and China's is not and is going down. So this gave me a comparison for the global scale of how young people is going to benefit India. So that is the way I also brought about the introduction. Now sometimes in both mains answer writing and the essay, whenever you're quoting some numbers or whenever you're quoting some graphs or figures, it's important to show the source of the information as well, because sometimes the sources might be ambiguous. Another thing that I would like to speak on ethics is that ethics is a paper that has all the potential to bring out what you truly are. So if you are a person with a very strong moral compass and also a pragmatic sensibility, I think that you will be able to bring out very balanced answers. So there are two parts to ethics answers. One is section A, which comprises and which demands 200 words or 150 words of answers. The other one is case study. So the first half is the 200 word small paragraph or 2 paragraphs, is somewhere where you get an opportunity to display the kind of person you are and also to display the kind of thinking that you have towards a particular topic. For example, if there is a question regarding whether values are universal or values are changing, right? You can think of two sides of that particular topic and understand that both sides exist, and how much of one side exists is really up to you. So what I would do in that particular question is to have one paragraph of analyzing which all values are universal. For example, honesty is universal. Non-violence is a value that is universal, right? But there are also values that are continuously changing. For example, you can say that in the globalized world, certain values are changing. So this really helps bring in a particular contrast in how you think regarding a particular matter. Now, another thing to mention regarding ethics is it's important to have certain examples, either examples from outside the world or from your own life itself, to supplement these arguments that you're bringing about in your ethics answers. So the briefer these examples are, the better time you have to do your case studies, because ethics answers are really lengthy. And after this whole discourse of both sides of the argument, you can have a one-line or two-line conclusion of what you think about values. You can say that since people and places are changing and evolving, the values also change over time. But fundamentally, then, since humanity doesn't change, some values also stay permanent. So you can have a balanced opinion in the end. Sometimes, with some answers, the question might demand you to take a particular stand on an issue. So in those cases where the questions are personal, it's important to have a personal example to supplement your thought process as well. So that is what I have to say about section A. Now section B is full of case studies. I think there are 6 or 7 case studies. There are many methods to tackle case studies. What I used is a comparison of stakeholders and pros and cons. So I had a tabular form where one axis would be stakeholders and the other axis would be the options that are available for every scenario. So to set context to this particular table, I had previously enlisted in the answer all the stakeholders, all the conflicts that are arising from a particular situation, and all the options that are available to me to choose from it. So in the end, after analyzing the stakeholders and the benefits and losses of all the stakeholders in every case, in every scenario, I go ahead to write why I chose one particular option and also way forward or suggestions for the future. So that's it about the mains answer writing for GS. My optional was English literature, and I'm not sure how many people might choose it, but as an introduction, I would say that it's a very defined syllabus.